Hello YouTube, Shin Tiger Curl here, that dude in the straw hat, bringing you the next part of my countdown to Pirate Warriors 3 Let's Play. Last time we finished out the Straw Hat Pirates with their eccentric and pretty Afro-tastic musician, Brooke. And now we move on to the next group of characters. But before we get to the next individual sets of profiles, let's do another group profile. Now, you may have heard me say this name, you may have heard this title spring up a lot in the other profiles, the word Warlord. You're probably wondering what that means. Well, before I move on to the next set of characters, I figured I'd go over an explanation of what a Warlord is in the world of One Piece. So, we're going to profile the 7 Warlords of the Sea. As always, all the information provided for this video comes directly from the One Piece Wiki. So if you want to learn more about the characters, places, events, and items of the One Piece world, head on over to One Piece Wiki and just wander around and figure out which character you like best. Or better yet, just read the manga or watch the anime. They're all good. So with that, let's begin. The Shichibukai, full title being Oka Shichibukai, literally meaning the 7 Warlords of the Sea, are 7 powerful and notorious pirates who have allied themselves with the world government. The 7 Warlords of the Sea is an organization of 7 pirates turned privateers in the service of the world government. Although they work for the world government, the warlords themselves do not typically care nor respect the government, excluding Kuma, who is modified into their puppet, or even other warlords, and are often considered by the Marines to be no different than any other pirate. On the other hand, they are known as government dogs, and are despised by other pirates, but are still feared and respected for their infamous reputations and strength which they have gained before and even after becoming a warlord. The 7 warlords seem to be a mixture of the more chaotic 4 emperors and the more orderly Marines. The majority of the 7 warlords are comprised of New World veterans, those who have met the emperors or even fought against them. There is an enormous range of bounties between the members due to the differences in circumstances in which they were recruited, with Trafalgar Law, who had a bounty of 440 million berries, and Blackbeard, who had no bounty at all. It should be noted that these are their former bounties and do not represent the current threat they have achieved as active pirates. Jinbei's bounty, for example, jumped from 250 to over 400 million berries after his resignation. Another example is Crocodile, who, with a bounty of 81 million, was imprisoned in level 6 of Impale Down, while Luffy, with a bounty of 300 million at the time, was only put at level 5. In the terms that the warlords are on each other is best described as very unstable. They have very little, if any, respect for each other, and will, for the most part, not accept help from one another, apparently due to a firm sense of pride. During the meeting of the 7 warlords, where only 2 members were absent, Hancock and Jinbei, it is stated that the very notion of them working together as a team is entirely unthinkable. However, Kuma and Doflamingo do not regard the notion of allying with another warlord. Kuma offered Moria assistance in defeating the Straw Hats, and Doflamingo offered Crocodile an opportunity for a partnership. Both offers were refused due to pride. During Boa Hancock's visit to Impale Down's level 6, Jinbei stated that he did not know much about her, possibly suggesting that only some of the warlords are familiar with each other or even have personally met all the other members. Despite this, as of Chapter 575, all of the 7 warlords, including the former ones, fought in the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Marines. Most of the 7 warlords have a jaded attitude of the world, as their vast amounts of experience have disillusioned them. Crocodile and Moria both disregard Luffy's arrogant behavior, saying that he's too inexperienced to know what the world is truly like. Mihawk behaved in a similar fashion in his duel with Zoro, though he hopes that he will become a successful swordsman. Doflamingo, spoiled by his former celestial dragon heritage and twisted by being repeatedly tortured afterwards, believes there is no true justice in the world, and that both the Marines and pirates are foolish to think they are upholding it. Hancock, through her horrid experience as a slave, considers all men in the world to be scum outside of Luffy, whom she is in love with, and anyone who Luffy is on good terms with. Rayleigh, who is her benefactor, and Fisher Tiger, who is responsible for liberating her from slavery. Methodology of the government dogs, becoming a warlord. A pirate may choose to join the 7 warlords if a space becomes vacant, which means that at least one of the warlords have resigned or expelled from the group, the former being Juve's case and the latter being Crocodile's case. However, in order to become a warlord, once this position opens up, one must be able to exhibit their strength against other pirates, while choosing to pledge loyalty to the world government. This ironically encourages pirates to gain infamy to become a warlord by making a pact with the Goryusei. If the pirate in question can be used as an intimidation purposes, the position may be offered to them, if no other pirate has accepted the position or proven more than an asset to the world government. As expected, most members were already notorious with high bounties, but even relatively unknown pirates can be admitted if they've accomplished a great feat to prove their strength. Blackbeard's victory over Port Gasty Ace and Trafalgar Law obtaining and sending the hearts of 100 pirates to Marine headquarters are prime examples of this. The world government can also be blackmailed into giving the position, such as when Doflamingo held the tax money meant for the world nobles hostage to become one. Duties of the 7 warlords. They do not express open defiance of the authority of the world government, but are not obliged to follow their orders either. They are technically only allowed to attack other pirates, and must also compensate the government with a portion of their plunder, although this regulation is not followed by most of the time. Each member of the 7 warlords must also have strong enough intimidation skills and a fearsome image to put others off becoming pirates and making them fear them. In addition, given the discussion between Kuma and the Gorosei, it can be assumed that once someone becomes appointed to the title of warlord, they must be undefeated to retain their position, or at least not allowed to have it widely known debacle or scandal that affects their reputation. Some members do various tasks for the government, such as conquering new islands for the world government, described as liberating, and protecting nations, but their ultimate purpose is to keep other pirates in check. Most importantly, the 7 warlords provide assistance in maintaining the balance of the 3 great powers. Technically speaking, the 7 warlords are considered allies of the world government, and in times of war are obligated to collaborate with the Marines. Still, many Marine officers, such as Vice Admiral Smoker, Admiral Kizaru, and former Fleet Admiral Sengoku, despise them and consider the 7 warlords to be just pirates. Several high-ranking Marines expressed surprise that even 2 of the warlords actually bothered showing up when summoned for the meeting about Crocodile's removal, and they were very shocked when a 3rd arrived. Telling of the others besides Kuma that showed up, Doflamingo came out of sheer boredom, passing the time before the meeting by forcing 2 Marines to fight each other, and Mihawk came only to hear about the pirates before being discussed in the meeting. When they were not under orders from the world government, they have no commitment to assist the efforts of the Marines. Most of the 7 warlords appear to show general apathy towards the world government, and in some cases even hostility. During the battle with the Whitebeard pirates, Moria states that he doesn't care who wins, and Boa Hancock openly attacked both Marines and pirates. Benefits and concessions. In exchange for these services, the 7 warlords are pardoned for their former actions, and any existing bounties are rescinded. The enemy ship capture warrant allows warlords to legally plunder other pirates and uncivilized lands, most likely referring to countries not affiliated with the world government, so long as they give the portion of their loot to the world government. As the 7 warlords are no longer outlaws, they can make money outside through legitimate actions, as well as bounty hunting. Some, however, are content to simply float around the sea on their ships. The government does not seem to mind, and the 7 warlords are granted a great deal of autonomy on how they operate, at least thus far. Other benefits include access to resources out of the bounds of normal citizens and pirates, such as the use of seastone equipment. Boa Hancock in particular has a treaty that acts as a restraining order from all ships coming near Amazon Lily. Jinbei and his entire crew were given a pardon for their captain, Fisher Tiger's attack on the world nobles, and their status was slaves nullified. Don Quixote do Flamingo also managed to operate the human auction house with the government fully ignoring it before passing it to Disco. Crocodile abused the privilege of being no longer monitored so closely to build himself a large and powerful covert organization, Baroque Works, while Boa Hancock, Blackbeard, and Trafalgar Law exploited their benefits their statuses granted them in order to enter facilities that would normally be unreachable by a pirate. The privilege of protection and pardon extends to any of the warlord's subordinates, as Jinbei was able to have Arlong released from Impel Down, and the rest of the Sun Pirates returned to Fishman Island freely, while Caesar Clown, guilty of destroying Punk Hazard via illegal chemical experiments, was given a pardon simply for working directly under Don Quixote do Flamingo. Prior to joining the Straw Hat Pirates, Nico Robins sought to be Crocodile's parlor mainly for protection. Had Law said the Straw Hat Pirates were his subordinates instead of his allies, the notorious crew might have been amnestied. Dismissal or resignation. Even if they violate the law, the world government and the Marines may choose to not take any notice. Doflamingo used his own human auction house before giving it to Disco. Crocodile seemed to have gone unsupervised for an extremely long period of time, as he had created a large malevolent organization that the world government was completely unaware of, while Moria was abducting citizens and Marines alike to create an army of zombies without the government's raising much complaint. Because of the risk involved of maintaining the 3 great powers, the government tolerates the illegal activities of any warlord and attempts to protect them if possible, or at least maintain their fame. That is to say, they would not dismiss a warlord for such actions. There have been several warlords who have been dismissed from their position for several reasons. Crocodile's actions in Alabaster left the world government with few options other than his dismissal, although in fact Luffy dealt with him, and his bounty was raised because of that. Moria's defeat was met with horror by the world government, as they had only just replaced Crocodile's loss. Fearing that it would happen if another fell, the world government attempted to cover this up by attempting to kill all the survivors of Thriller Bark before word got out. Even though Kuma, the one sent to deal with the problem, chose to disregard the order of the Gorosei, Moria was able to retain his status for a time, later answering the call to arms against the Whitebeard pirates. However, after the war, the government finally deemed Moria was too weak to continue being a warlord and decided to annul his pact and eliminate him, under the pretense of Moria dying during the war to preserve the warlord's reputation of strength. Jinbei fortified his position as a warlord for his refusal to assist in the war against the Whitebeard pirates, and was incarcerated in level 6 of Impel Down. After Monkey D. Luffy helped him escape, he assisted the young pirate in breaking free from Impel Down and traveled to Marine Ford and cooperated with Whitebeard's faction during the battle, choosing to abdicate his position permanently and again becoming a willing enemy of both the Marines and the world government. Blackbeard only wanted to be a warlord as to be able to reach Impel Down in order to release several level 6 prisoners and create a stronger crew. Also, as soon as he achieved this goal, he was no longer interested and resigned his title as a warlord. Dismissal from the warlords holds not only individual loss of title, but in cases also the breakdown of possible politics affiliated to the 7 warlords. As Boa Hancock warned, when she obeyed the world government, her nation's treaty with the world government would be respected. However, if she didn't heed the call of the world government, the treaty with her home island of Amazon Lily would be made void. Smoker has implied that Hancock and her people would suffer repercussions for helping Luffy during the war. However, throughout the war, events related to her were often interpreted incorrectly by the Marines and others, thus her status as a warlord seemed to have not been brought into question. Doflamingo participated in several illegal activities, such as the human auctioning house for slave trade, but having disowned it didn't seem to affect him. He also stated he would quit the Warlords should they bore him with menial assignments. He has also placed a deep cover agent in the Marines, Vice Admiral Virgo, and has the rogue Marine scientist Caesar Clown to produce weapons for him in the underworld of the New World. These crimes could easily revoke his status, but he has managed to keep this from being discovered. However, after Law blackmailed Doflamingo into forcing him to renounce his title to retrieve Caesar Clown lest he face Kaido's wrath, Doflamingo was left with no choice but to resign his status. This provoked international uproar, though it was later revealed to be a deception. By designating Caesar as his subordinate instead of his associate, Doflamingo was able to maintain his position while releasing Caesar from his status as a wanted criminal. Doflamingo's ability to make the world falsely believe that he had resigned is a privilege beyond any warlord, and Law suggested that something something only a world noble could accomplish. When Law's alliance with the Straw Hats was in the news, his seat as a warlord fell into jeopardy. Although Fujitora revoked his status as a warlord, it is unknown if the world government has received any of the news. Relationships. Most of the 7 warlords seem to have only limited knowledge of each other, such as Jinbei never meeting Hancock before her visit to Impel Down. However, some others, such as Doflamingo and Crocodile, converse as though they were familiar with each other. In fact, Doflamingo is knowledgeable of Kuma's participation in the Pacifista program, yet does not know his past relationship with the revolutionaries. During their interactions, most of them were very hostile, such as Jinbei and Crocodile snarling at each other over matters of Whitebeard. At times, however, they can be courteous, such as Kuma offering to help Moria in fighting against the Straw Hat Pirates, though the latter angrily refused. Law used to be Doflamingo's subordinate, but eventually after joining, Law openly betrayed and blackmailed his former superior to resign from the Warlords, threatening to not just the man but the balance of the 7 once again. Strength. The 7 warlords are a group of 7 of the world's strongest pirates and one of the 3 great powers, the other being the 4 emperors and the Marines. In terms of power, the exact relationship between the 7 warlords, Marine headquarters, and the 4 emperors is unknown. However, considering these factions are stated to be in balance, and the fact that the loss of Crocodile threatens said balance, the most reasonable conclusion is that each organization is approximately equivalent in strength. At least 2 of the warlords, Moria and Mihawk, have said to have been rivals of Emperor members, Kaido and Shanks, respectively. Bartholomew Kuma has allowed himself to become part of the Pacifista project. The strength of at least one warlord, Boa Hancock, has been acknowledged by former Fleet Admiral Sengoku himself. This, in addition to the fact that losing a single member of the warlords can disrupt the balance of the world powers and cause distress in the world government, indicates the extreme power each individual has. The strength of a warlord is so great that should they be imprisoned for any reason, they will be sentenced to level 6 of Impel Down, the lowest and most secure level of the prison. Both Jinbei and Crocodile were imprisoned there. The only exception to this may be Buggy, who appears to have only gained the position through his reputation and influence, being on casual talking terms with the Emperor Shanks and commanding a large number of Impel Down escapees rather than actual fighting strength. Although it remains to be seen if Buggy's fighting abilities have changed at all during the 2-year time skip. Because of their pact with the world government, the 7 warlords are considered government dogs by other pirates. At the same time, they are also feared by them because all the 7 warlords are insanely strong, each capable of destroying an average pirate crew on their own with little effort, as seen with Mihawk and Crocodile. They have such a fierce reputation that other powerful and famous pirates are unnerved by them, as seen when the captains of the Kid Pirates, the Eustace Captain Kidd, actually seemed to be heavily disturbed when he witnessed the arrival of a pacifist cyborg, mistaking it for the real Kuma, on the Shabayondi archipelago, close to where his crew were, despite the fact that his bounty was actually higher than Kuma's former bounty, demonstrating that how their strength was even greater than the implied by their frozen bounties in the eyes of others. Each member has some ability or power, the majority being devil fruits, which Jinbei and Mihawk being the only exceptions so far. These abilities oftentimes vary depending on the warlord's theme. Some of their abilities appear in conflict with each other. For example, Blackbeard's power involves drawing people to him, while Kuma's power involves rejecting people away from him. And Doflamingo's power allows him to control the motions of other people at will, while Hancock immobilizes them, turning them to stone. Also, Buggy has the ability to split apart his own body, while Law can split apart bodies of other people. In the case of Crocodile and Jinbei, this opposition also extends to the environment in which their abilities are at their full zenith, i.e. being a fishman, Jinbei's fighting powers are at their peak in the deep and open sea, while Crocodile, having consumed the Suna fruit, favors the arid desert. It should be noted that Mihawk and Jinbei are the only two known warlords to rely on their own abilities, as they are not devil fruit users. In relationship to each other, it is not known exactly how they compare in strength. However, during the Battle of Marine Ford, several members and former members battled each other, and none managed to defeat or significantly injure each other in the battle. Although, while most appear evenly matched, after Moria was defeated by Luffy, he was deemed a liability and it was decided that he could no longer continue as a warlord. As a result, Doflamingo was ordered to exterminate Moria along with a group of several pacifistas. Manga influences. They are loosely based on the privateers of old European naval superpowers. The privateers were approved pirates, considered heroes in their homelands and pillagers in others. Their main goal was to plunder ships and towns of rival and enemies of their allied nation. Historically, Sir Francis Drake and Don Miguel Enriquez were among the most successful, with their earnings surpassing the equivalent of $100 million by modern standards, and their political influences reaching the royalty of their time. Translation and dub issues. The title of the Seven Warlords, the title of Shichibukai, is a Japanese term created by Oda, which literally means seven military seas, which is translated directly into English. Due to its meaning being lost when literally translated into English, various translations have slightly modified the title in order to convey the term in English. Early scanlations used Seven Gods of Pirates, while Viz, 4Kids, and Funimation adaptations have called them the Seven Warlords of the Sea. Meanwhile, the One Piece Green Secret Pieces data book, which was released in Japan in November of 2010, includes the original Japanese version, several romanticized in English names for just about every character and group in the series. The Shichibukai is listed as the Seven Worlds of the Sea. The word worlds appears to have been not a translation from the Japanese version at all, and is unexplained in the book. However, it does appear right in the area of the book with the two pages split apart, splitting it as the words Wu and Worlds. It is possible that either Oda prefers to call the group the Seven Worlds of the Sea, or that this was a mistake and the book intended to call them the Seven Warlords of the Sea. And that is the end of the profile for the Seven Warlords of the Sea. 23 minutes. Seems like that's pretty much the average. So, whenever you hear a reference from then or before or now, that's what I mean when I say warlords. I know a lot of people don't like to use the English translation, but saying the Shichibukai a lot kind of tires out my tongue, so I'm just settling for warlord. Tune in next time as we profile the first of the Seven Warlords of the Sea, the treacherous Surgeon of Death, Trafalgar Law. So, if you like what you've seen, link, comment, subscribe below. If you got any questions, comments, or just want to talk about One Piece, leave them below. I will answer each and every one of them. If you want to support the channel, just give a hit of that like button just beneath the screen, or click on an advertisement. It really does help out with the bills and such. Or if you want to just donate directly, you know the deal. Tip jars up there. You know what to do if you want to do it. So, until next time, it's a Shin Tiger Curl, that dude in the straw hat, saying good day, and prepare yourself.